The Pope, WrestleMania, and concerts. The Silverdome changed the game when it came to stadium shows.
That was then. Now from the air, we see the state of the once proud Pontiac Silverdome.
It's just a big eyesore. Our city is messed up enough.
This is the Pontiac Silverdome, one of the most celebrated stadiums ever built in the United States. 82,000 seats. It hosted the Super Bowl, a papal mass, and became the first stadium in history to hold a FIFA World Cup match entirely indoors. Taxpayers spent $55.7 million building it. The city got $583,000 back. You've already paid for it. What could make a city of 60,000 people commit to an 82,000-seat stadium they would spend decades trying to escape? Why did Michigan keep sending $800,000 a year in state money to a private football team playing inside it? When the roof started failing, who decided the building was still worth keeping? And when it was all gone, which one of them was actually held responsible? The Silverdome was not supposed to be just a stadium. It was supposed to be a rescue operation. Pontiac, Michigan, a manufacturing city 30 miles north of Detroit, had been built around one industry. As the auto industry began pulling back in the early 1970s, Pontiac pulled back with it. Tax revenue dropped, businesses closed, city leaders needed something to reverse the decline. The Detroit Lions were playing at Tiger Stadium in Detroit, a baseball park built in 1912. Cramped, outdated, and built for the wrong sport. C. Don Davidson, a local architect and urban planning professor at the University of Detroit, saw an opening. He proposed a massive domed stadium that would anchor an urban renewal project for Pontiac and give the Lions a permanent home. He pushed the idea so hard he started his own weekly newspaper just to promote it. Pontiac went all in.
Ground was broken September 19, 1973 by the mayor of Pontiac, the owner of the Detroit Lions, and the Pontiac Stadium Building Authority chairman. The site of 132 acres included several swamps, which had to be drained, compacted, and filled.
Construction began in September 1973. Over 2,500 workers moved 1.5 million cubic yards of dirt and poured 52,000 cubic yards of concrete. Builders started with the upper deck first, then excavated downward, finishing the entire structure in 23 months, without a single work stoppage. The engineering feature that set the Silverdome apart from every other professional sports facility on Earth was its roof.
Erection of structural steel got underway for the tension ring, which supports the unique fiberglass fabric roof. The fabric is 1/32 inch thick Teflon-coated fiberglass. Initially tan in color, it gradually bleaches to a gleaming translucent white. Under tension, the fiberglass yarn is pound for pound stronger than steel and less expensive. It also resists burning, shrinking, rotting, or mildewing. The supporting pressure is applied by 25 blowers, each powered with a 75 horsepower motor mounted on the roof ring.
No steel columns, no overhead frame blocking sightlines. Hidden pumps kept the interior air pressure just slightly above outside atmospheric pressure. That invisible pressure difference was the only thing holding 430,000 square feet of Teflon-coated fiberglass against the Michigan sky. The first time this technique had ever been used in a major athletic facility anywhere in the world. When sunlight hit the coating at the right angle, the roof cast a silver sheen across the parking lot. People started calling it the Silverdome before it even had an official name. For 2 decades, the building delivered. Led Zeppelin set a world record for a single-act indoor concert in 1977 with 76,229 fans. Super Bowl 16 in January 1982, the first Super Bowl ever played in a cold-weather state. WrestleMania III in March 1987, with a reported 93,173 people inside, the largest recorded attendance for a live indoor sporting event in North American history. Months later, Pope John Paul II celebrated Mass inside the dome in front of 93,682 people. And in the summer of 1994, agricultural scientists from Michigan State University grew real natural grass inside the pressurized dome, laid it over wooden pallets on the existing turf, and helped the Silverdome host the first FIFA World Cup matches ever played indoors. No stadium had ever done it before. The Silverdome had to invent the solution as it went. Now the FIFA World Cup is back in North America for the first time since that summer, with 16 host cities across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Once again, giant stadiums built for other sports are being turned into soccer stages. But the building that helped create that playbook is now a warehouse off I-75. For Pontiac, those years mattered. The Silverdome was not just a place to watch football. It was where the city saw itself on national television, and where a manufacturing town could still feel like it belonged on the national stage.
The city is ready to make some money off the masses. Posters hang in every business reminding folks that Sunday is party day.
The Silverdome was hosting the biggest events on the planet, but the very things that made it revolutionary in the 1970s were quietly making it a liability in the 1990s. That was the peak. The decline began above the field. The pneumatic design depended on constant balance. Pressure had to stay high enough to hold the fabric in shape. Snow had to be cleared before accumulation became too heavy. In southeastern Michigan, which averages 40 inches of snow per year, that maintenance burden turned into a permanent fight. The building was always one bad winter away from losing. Just 1 year after opening, a thunderstorm caused a partial collapse. Then in March 1985, a late-season snowstorm dropped dense wet snow onto the surface. 7 panels tore simultaneously. Snow poured onto the field. Concrete broke loose from the upper deck and crushed rows of seats. By pure luck, no one was killed. Repairs cost just under $8 million and took several months. The repair records were public. A pressurized fabric roof in southeastern Michigan was not a permanent solution. It was a maintenance obligation with no exit. The roof was the first problem. It was not the worst one. The hidden cost kept growing. Pontiac financed the stadium through public debt and revenue bonds totaling $55.7 million. A significant portion of every dollar generated went back to servicing that debt, leaving little capital for upgrades. On top of that, the state of Michigan was sending the Detroit Lions $800,000 per year in direct taxpayer subsidies, separate from the city's own tax concessions. 2 layers of public money flowing to a private sports organization inside a building whose roof had already failed twice. The Mackinac Center for Public Policy, a Michigan-based policy research organization, documented both subsidy streams in its 2012 review of stadium financing. No public hearing was ever called to examine whether the arrangement made financial sense. Then it gets worse. By the mid-1990s, the NFL had restructured its revenue model around luxury suites, club seating, and corporate hospitality boxes. Newer stadiums were being designed around these premium areas from the ground up. The Silverdome had 80,000 seats. What it lacked was the premium revenue infrastructure that the Lions' ownership, controlled by William Clay Ford Sr., grandson of Henry Ford and owner of the Lions since 1964, now required to remain competitive. When the Detroit Tigers announced a new downtown ballpark, the Lions demanded the same. Pontiac refused. The relationship deteriorated so completely that city maintenance workers deliberately ran the stadium's air pumps at maximum output and blasted music over the sound system during a Lions practice, creating enough interior wind to make it impossible. The Lions played their final game on January 6th. 2002 paid $26 million to break the lease early and left for Ford Field in downtown Detroit. Pontiac was left alone with an 82,000-seat structure it could not fill, could not sell, and could not afford to keep. And here's the part nobody wants to answer. From 2002 to 2009, the Silverdome sat empty. No events, no income. A $1.5 million annual maintenance bill arriving in a city already running out of options. General Motors had entered bankruptcy. The city's largest tax-paying employer was gone. By 2009, Pontiac was in such severe financial distress, the state had placed it under an emergency financial manager. The city had effectively lost control of its own budget. But before that happened, in early 2008, a company called United Assurance Company Limited, a Canadian real estate and investment firm, offered as much as $18.5 million to purchase the Silverdome and convert it into an entertainment complex. The city turned the offer down. Officials believed a better deal was coming. It was not. Then came the auction that erased a stadium. By late 2009, with $100 million in total debt, the state appointed Fred Lieb, a municipal turnaround specialist, as emergency financial manager. Lieb authorized an open auction with no minimum bid. In November 2009, the auction opened at $20 million. Nobody moved. Only 4 bids came in total. The highest came from Andreas Apostolopoulos, a Toronto-based real estate investor and head of Triple Properties Inc. Apostolopoulos had mailed in a sealed bid of $550,000 weeks earlier, then left for vacation. When his son called to say the bid had won, he did not remember placing it. With the auction house fee, the final price came to $583,000. The city had been expecting at least $17 million. It received 3.5 cents for every dollar taxpayers had originally put in. It was the moment decades of public investment became someone else's discounted property. The man who bought an 80,000-seat NFL stadium forgot he placed the bid. But the auction was not the end of the Silverdome story. It was the beginning of watching a building too large to save slowly collapse in public.
Yeah, we wanted to know why more than half a decade later the owner's promise to fix up the place hasn't happened, and will it ever? That proved harder than we'd hoped. For Pontiac residents, all they see is a dangerous eyesore. What would you say to the owners who haven't done anything with this place?
Either do something with it or get rid of it.
Apostolopoulos invested approximately $6 million trying to revive the building through monster truck events, minor soccer matches, and boxing cards. A stadium built for 82,000 people feels like a graveyard when only 12,000 show up. In 2013, another heavy snowstorm tore the roof again. This time, no repair was made. The dome deflated permanently. Moss spread across the concrete concourses. Water pooled on the field where Barry Sanders once played. The scoreboard went dark forever. By 2017, the city sued Triple Properties Inc. for code violations. Demolition was ordered. On December 3, 2017, the Adamo Group detonated the charges.
All you hear is boom, 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 boom. And that was it. A bunch of smoke, but nothing else.
And you might also notice that the stadium is still there.
Smoke rose. A deep boom crossed the empty asphalt. Nothing moved. A wiring issue had prevented 10 detonators from firing. The steel ring that had held the roof for over 40 years refused to fall. The crew returned the following day with twice the explosive 600 pounds of TNT and completed the job. Total demolition cost $8 million, 14 times what the developer had paid to buy the entire property. The site is now a 3.7 million square foot Amazon distribution center. It employs workers. It does not return the $80 million Pontiac spent building and maintaining the Silverdome across 3 decades. One no minimum auction erased $55.7 million in public investment. And it is happening again, right now. This was not a stadium that simply wore out. It was a financing structure that rewarded a private franchise with public money at both the city and state level, then left no recovery mechanism when that franchise walked away. Pontiac spent an estimated $80 million over 3 decades on a building it never fully controlled and could never afford to lose. The original $55.7 million construction cost, plus maintenance and carrying costs through 2009. A total cited by Fred Lieb, the state-appointed emergency financial manager, at the time of the sale. In a city of 60,000 people that represented roughly $1,333 in public exposure per resident. The people who approved those arrangements were not the ones signing the auction papers. No one was forced to answer for them. Some will argue the Silverdome deal made sense in 1973. Pontiac needed an economic anchor. The Lions brought revenue the city could not generate on its own. No one could have predicted how much the NFL's economics would shift, or how badly the auto industry would hollow out Pontiac's tax base. The timing, they will say, was the problem, not the decision. Others will point to the roof failures, the repair records public by 1985, the $800,000 in annual state subsidies that kept flowing, the $18,500,000 offer declined with no replacement secured, and the no minimum auction that followed. They will ask whether anyone in Lansing or Pontiac was reading the documents they were signing. Modern stadiums still sell the same promise: global events, international attention, and a future paid for years before anyone knows if the math will work. Right now, Nashville, Tennessee is building a new domed stadium for the Tennessee Titans, a franchise whose ownership carries an estimated net worth of $6.3 billion. The total project cost is $2.1 billion. Taxpayers are covering $1.26 billion of that, the largest stadium subsidy in United States history, according to Forbes and Reason Foundation. The stadium opens in 2027. The Titans have a 30-year lease. Pontiac had one too. You just do not know what Nashville will be holding when that lease expires. The project you just watched took years to fail publicly. The next one on this channel took longer and cost more. Subscribe, because by the time it makes the news, it's already too late. Comments are open. Name your city.